Imagine a building that represents absolute stability in the global financial system. The Bank of England, Threadneedle Street, London. For more than 3 centuries, this institution had been the beating heart of the British Empire, believed to be untouchable. But on the morning of the 16th of September 1992, panic filled its stone halls. Outside, in the trading rooms of London and New York, a silent war was unfolding. No weapons, no soldiers, only phone calls, flashing screens, and billions of pounds moving at the speed of light. By the end of that day, the British government would be forced to admit a humiliating defeat. Billions in taxpayer money would be lost, the Prime Minister's credibility would be shattered, and the pound would collapse in value. Meanwhile, in a quiet office across the Atlantic, one man watched his monitors in silence. In just 24 hours, he had made over $1 billion. His name was George Soros. To understand how this happened, you have to understand the system that trapped Britain. In the late 1980s, Europe was dreaming of a single currency. To prepare for it, countries created the exchange rate mechanism, known as the ERM. Under this system, European nations agreed to keep their currencies within a narrow range against the German mark. Germany was the economic powerhouse of Europe, and its currency was seen as the anchor of stability. The United Kingdom joined the ERM in 1990, committing to defend the value of the pound at almost any cost. But history soon exposed a fatal flaw. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell and Germany reunified. To control inflation caused by reunification spending, the German central bank raised interest rates aggressively. Britain, however, was in recession. Unemployment was rising, businesses were collapsing, and the economy needed lower interest rates to survive. Under normal conditions, Britain would have cut rates, but because of the ERM, it couldn't. To keep the pound stable against the mark, interest rates had to stay high. The British government was trapped between economic reality at home and political promises abroad. George Soros saw this contradiction immediately. A Hungarian-born survivor of World War II, Soros was not just a trader, he was a thinker. He believed in a concept called reflexivity, the idea that markets don't simply reflect reality, they actively shape it. When governments pretend something is true long enough, markets eventually test that lie. Soros looked at Britain and saw a currency pretending to be strong while the economy beneath it was weak. He knew the Bank of England was defending the pound by burning through its foreign currency reserves, buying pounds to keep the price artificially high. And he understood a fundamental rule of finance. No central bank, no matter how powerful, can defeat the entire global market forever. So he made a decision. He would bet not just against the pound, but against the illusion holding it up. He instructed his fund to short the currency in massive amounts, selling borrowed pounds with the intention of buying them back later at a much lower price. On the night of September 15, the selling began. By the morning of September 16, later known as Black Wednesday, the pressure was overwhelming. As markets opened, a flood of sell orders crushed the pound. The Bank of England spent billions buying its own currency, but the price kept falling. Desperate, the government announced an emergency interest rate hike, raising rates from 10% to 12%. Instead of calming markets, it confirmed their fear. The pound dropped further. Hours later, another announcement followed. Interest rates would rise to 15%. It was an act of panic. Rates that high would devastate homeowners, businesses, and the entire economy. The market didn't believe it would last. Speculators continued selling. Every minute, the Bank of England lost more reserves. By evening, the truth could no longer be denied. Britain withdrew from the ERM. The pound was allowed to float freely and immediately collapsed, losing around 15% of its value. When the dust settled, the numbers were brutal. British taxpayers had lost roughly 3.4 pounds billion. George Soros had earned over $1.1 billion. He broke no laws and used no inside information. He simply identified a gap between political pride and economic reality and exploited it. Ironically, what began as a disaster became a turning point. With a weaker pound and lower interest rates, the British economy eventually recovered. But the lesson remained. In a globalized financial system, markets can overpower governments. That day sealed Soros's legacy. He became known as the man who broke the Bank of England. A reminder that history isn't always written by kings or generals. Sometimes it's written by someone with a calculator, a massive line of credit, and the courage to bet against a lie.